Every morning, a man pulls into the same office parking lot, driving an old Honda Civic. The paint is slightly faded, there's a small dent near the back bumper, and nothing about the car attracts attention. To most people in the building, he looks like someone doing okay, but nothing more. Some coworkers quietly assume he's struggling a little. Maybe he's trying to save money. Maybe he's dealing with bills. Maybe life just hasn't worked out big for him yet. In a parking lot where a few employees drive new SUVs and luxury cars, his vehicle blends into the background like it has no story at all. But the truth is almost the complete opposite of what everyone believes. The man driving that Civic is quietly wealthy. His house has been fully paid off for years. His investment accounts hold millions of dollars in simple index funds that have been growing steadily for decades. His kids' college education is already secured. If he wanted to stop working tomorrow, financially, he could do it without any stress. Yet he still wakes up, gets in that same modest car, and drives to work like everyone else. And the reason isn't that he can't afford something nicer. It's that he understands something most people never fully realize about money. Real wealth usually looks surprisingly ordinary. Society tends to paint a very different picture of what a wealthy person should look like. We're constantly shown images of success that involve flashy cars, giant houses, designer clothes, and luxury vacations. Social media feeds are full of people displaying lifestyles that appear expensive and glamorous. Movies and advertisements reinforce the same idea over and over again. If someone is successful, everyone should be able to see it. But when researchers have actually studied people who build real long-term wealth, the results tell a completely different story. Many of the people with the strongest financial positions don't live flashy lives at all. In fact, they often appear fairly average from the outside. Instead of spending heavily on things that signal status, they quietly put their money into assets that grow over time. They focus less on impressing others and more on building financial stability for themselves and their families. The difference between these two approaches might seem small in the moment, but over time it becomes enormous. Every dollar that goes towards showing off success is a dollar that can't be invested for the future. When money is invested instead of spent, it begins to grow through compound returns. At first, the growth feels slow. A few $1,000s invested in a year doesn't seem like a big deal. But when that process continues for decades, the results become extraordinary. Investments begin earning returns, and those returns start earning returns of their own. What once looked like small decisions slowly turn into life-changing outcomes. Someone following this path might look completely ordinary to everyone around them. They might live in a comfortable house instead of a mansion. They might wear practical clothes instead of luxury brands. They might drive a reliable car instead of a flashy one. Yet behind the scenes, their financial life is steadily strengthening every single year. On the other side are people who focus more on visible success. When their income grows, their lifestyle grows with it. A raise becomes a bigger house. A promotion becomes a luxury car. A bonus becomes expensive jewelry or designer clothing. From the outside, it looks impressive. Friends admire it, coworkers notice it, and social media rewards it with attention. But there's a hidden cost that almost nobody talks about. Most luxury purchases lose value quickly. Cars depreciate, fashion trends change, technology becomes outdated, and the money used to buy those things disappear instead of growing. Over a long enough timeline, two people earning the exact same salary can end up in completely different financial situations depending on which path they choose. One spends most of their income maintaining an image of success. The other quietly invests a portion of every paycheck. Decades later, the person who looked average may actually have far greater financial security than the person who appeared wealthy the entire time. Living modestly also creates something that many people underestimate: freedom. When someone builds a lifestyle that requires constant spending, they also create constant pressure to keep earning. Every payment, every upgrade, every luxury purchase becomes another obligation tied to future income. But when someone keeps their spending under control and invests the difference, they slowly build independence. Over time, they reach a point where working becomes optional rather than necessary. That kind of freedom is something money can buy. But it only happens when money is allowed to grow instead of constantly being used to impress others. There's also a social side to this that people don't always think about. When someone visibly displays a lot of wealth, it can change how others treat them. Friends might expect them to pay more often, family members might assume they can provide financial help, colleagues might see them differently in professional settings. Money becomes part of the relationship even when nobody talks about it directly. Someone who appears financially ordinary avoids many of those complications. People interact with them more naturally because they aren't reacting to obvious signs of wealth. Relationships stay focused on personality, trust, and shared experiences instead of financial expectations. Even everyday situations can play out differently. Salespeople and service providers often adjust their behavior depending on who they think they're dealing with. Someone who arrives in an expensive car wearing designer clothing may be assumed to have a higher willingness to pay. Someone who looks average may simply receive standard pricing without the hidden premium that sometimes comes with visible wealth. Over the course of a lifetime, those small differences quietly add up. Security is another factor that rarely gets mentioned. When wealth is displayed openly, it attracts attention. Sometimes that attention comes from people with bad intentions. Scammers, fraud attempts, and financial predators often focus on individuals they believe have significant assets. A modest lifestyle naturally reduces that visibility. The less someone advertises their wealth, the less likely they are to become an obvious target. But one of the biggest differences between visible wealth and quiet wealth happens internally. People who constantly chase status find themselves stuck in a cycle of comparison. There is always someone with something bigger, newer, or more expensive. Trying to keep up can feel like running on a treadmill that never stops. The excitement from a purchase fades quickly, and soon another upgrade feels necessary to maintain the same image. Someone focused on real financial stability experiences a different mindset. Their satisfaction comes from knowing their future is secure. They know they could handle emergencies without panic. They know their investments are working quietly in the background. That sense of security tends to last much longer than the temporary excitement of luxury purchases. Over many years, the difference between these two approaches becomes dramatic. Two people may earn similar incomes throughout their careers, yet one ends up financially independent while the other remains dependent on their next paycheck. The reason usually isn't luck or intelligence, it's the accumulation of thousands of small choices about how money is used. The old Honda Civic sitting in that office parking lot represents one of those choices. To most people, it looks ordinary, maybe even unimpressive. But to the person driving it, the car represents discipline, patience, and a long-term mindset. It represents the decision to build real wealth instead of simply appearing wealthy. The coworkers who glance at it and assume the driver is struggling have no idea what's actually happening behind the scenes. True wealth doesn't always announce itself with luxury brands or flashy lifestyles. Very often, it moves quietly through the world, unnoticed by almost everyone, while it steadily builds the one thing that matters most in the end: freedom.